This podcast is brought to you by our friends over at Village Sports at 941 West Pacheco Boulevard. Village Sports carries a wide variety of skate gear and skate apparel, everything from your skate decks to your clothing. They carry brands such as Huff, Vans, Thrasher, on and on. They also carry a wide variety of sports apparel, jackets, hats, beanies, all your new era fitted caps. You can also, whether you're looking to get yourself a fresh white tee for the weekend or a pair of Air Jordan 1s, retro Jordan 3s, he's also carrying a wide variety of Yeezy Boosts and all your Vans shoes and needs. Go visit our friend James and make sure you check out his Instagram at Village Sports. They also have a Patterson location located at 1040 West Las Palmas Avenue, Suite A2. That Instagram is Village Skate Shop, at Village Skate Shop. Hey, thank you, Village Sports.
Not so anonymous with the... No, I can't do that. Not so anonymous with eBay Eureka.
So we have my friend Darrell M, right?
Yeah.
Darrell M has been an important part of my story. The beginning, getting clean. I would see this man in various meeting places, right? He always had an impactful message, very passionate about recovery, very passionate about the newcomer, right? Willing to take his time. At that time, I was hiding behind stuff. I didn't want to get completely involved. How this man impacts my story. My last week in treatment, he was sponsoring some guys at the treatment facility I was in, right? He gave us a ride back to the facility. And he overheard me talking in the back seat that I'm getting out, wasn't sure what I was going to do or what that looked like, right? And so this triggered something in his head, and he kicks out the guys in his car, in my opinion, that were closer to him than I was, the guys he was sponsoring, and sits there with me probably for about a half hour, right? And he don't know me. I'm just some guy, right? And he wants to know what my exit plan is. Do I have a home group? Am I going to have a support system? Like genuine care for a guy that he doesn't really know, right? So this is showing me what recovery looks like, what you do for the next man, what giving back looks like. So when it comes time to talk to somebody for this podcast, his name comes right up in the top of the list, right? Because I appreciate you. I appreciate what you do for me. I appreciate what you've done for many people, right? And so without further ado, here's Darrell, man. So what's your clean date, Darrell? I like to start off with this. Like, what's your clean date, and what does that mean to you?
Love it. Great question. So my clean date 6/22/09. I got clean when the housing market was crashing, right? In Stockton, I remember driving, and there was like for sale sign. And yeah, man. So like that's like in the context of when I got clean, like everything was falling apart, and I was starting to put myself back together again, or God was starting to put me back together again. And like what that means to me, it means everything. You know, we were talking offline. The idea is I'm nothing without recovery, right? That active change in my ideas and my attitudes. Like this is about me continuously trying to become that better person. And man, it is not always easy, but you know what I mean? Because you understand this, you understand recovery.
So,
I'm going to close the window real quick, sorry.
That's what I was thinking too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it was open.
Yeah.
And I was trying to figure out.
Yeah, but I was hearing it too. Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead.
All right. So, going back to that, you were born and raised in Stockton, California, correct?
Yeah.
So
yes,
for like a young man, born and raised in this town, we're raised with certain truths, right? What life looks like, sample size of one we often talk about. Like, what was life like for you growing up? Like, young Darrell, born. Like, what do you think? What's your circumstance? I mean, let's bring it all the way back.
Sure, let's go all the way back, man. So if we're going back when we lived on Kelly Drive. Like that's my earliest remember of that's my earliest memory of me being on Kelly Drive.
So what's Kelly Drive? Is Kelly Drive like right off the Miracle Mile?
No,
Like in the beautiful
there you
place
go.
of
Right. So
Stockton?
for those who don't know, Kelly Drive is like, it's an impoverished, and it's a horrible neighborhood. At least it used to be in Stockton. I think it's gotten a lot better. But when I was growing up there, it was off the hook, man. You know, I remember like living in a cul-de-sac called Charleston Court, and I remember getting ready to go across the court to my friend's house, and a gang member in the car pulled up on me and was like, "Where are you from?" and like pulled out a gun. Like, I remember those things, you know. So like it was off the hook, you know. I love what you said. When you're coming to Stockton, you get gas before or after, right?
Yeah.
I love that because that's the truth. Like, who would want to be here if you didn't have to be?
Right.
You know.
And so, like, in that process of growing up, you probably seen a lot of things that turned you into the person you were before coming to recovery, right? Like, what path did that lead you down? Like, seeing those things as a young man and growing up in those areas, like, how does that affect one's mentality, right? Like, the truths that you believe before recovery.
Right. So in recovery, they talk about the internal and the external unmanageability, right? The untrue belief systems about myself and the world I live in really make up the context of the internal, right, unmanageability, right? And I think all those ideas of the world that I lived in, and what I seen as I was walking to the store, and what we seen on the news, and who I was, right? Not only as a Stocktonian, but then as a black person or black male in Stockton, and all those things that were permeating in my mind, like, this is who you are, right? And me breaking free from that required everything that I had to realize that I don't have to live in poverty. It doesn't have to be about government cheese. It doesn't mean, just all of that, man. Like, I realized somewhere in my life that I could do more than what was presented to me on the surface, right? And it started with here, right? It started with changing how I felt and how I viewed the world, right? Just being honest, you know?
Yeah, because I mean, so if I'm sitting here and I happen to find this on YouTube or Spotify, and I'm looking at you, I'm looking at me, right? And I'm like, these people aren't like me, right? Like, what qualifies us to tell their story, right? So like, these sets of beliefs and seeing these things, where does it end up taking you before you get clean, right? Like, what were your truths? What were you doing that led your life to the state of unmanageability where you said something's got to give here, right?
So what was going on? Because I see where you're going, right? You want to know what was happening before, right? Before I got clean. Even before I started putting in.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Started putting in the dope. Like, it was centered around control of my girlfriend, control of outcomes, control of situations, right? And what they say is what they say in our literature. Well, they don't even say it in our literature. Just what is the truth. My hard-won experience is that there's obsession, compulsion, total self-centeredness, right? And then there's a hidden component of control inside of the disease of addiction, that it wants to control the way that I feel. So I use this drug and then this drug, right? I use this person and then I use this person to control the way that I feel on the inside, right? Going back to the inner unmanageability of my own self. So the relationship with my son's mother led to me for the first time going to jail, right? And I'm going to talk about this because it's important, because I grew up in a world where violence solved problems, right? Stockton, California is known for a few things. One of it is violence. And I learned it in in my household, because I had uncles that were telling me this is how you hit somebody if they mess with you. You hit them in the nose, right? Like just small little things like that most people may have not even encountered that information, right? So my situation led to a domestic violence, right? And that domestic violence led to me in a place where I had never been, because prior to, even though I was using, right? And I want to talk about what I was using, right? Because some people are like, oh man, Darrell, you only use marijuana and pills and a little bit of alcohol, right? Marijuana is legal, And so here's what I want to talk to those people about. It's not about what we use. It's about the feelings that we encounter and the hangouts of horror that we visit in our spirit. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So like that's what this was about. That's what I dealt with the most. You know what I mean? And dealing with the feelings of not fitting in, right? And always being that outside, that outside person looking into what I perceived as normal, right? And living in a world of extremes, either I'm better than or less than, and there is no middle. But that's not the truth, because most of the time we live in the middle. We live in that middle, right? So just going back to your question, it was the domestic violence. The domestic violence led to me having to go to a 52-week domestic violence class. Right? That 52-week domestic violence class led me to Surrender to Live when it was on Lucerne, right? And how I got to, and I always tell this story, I'm in that 52-week domestic violence class, and I am talking to, so there's a guy in there, and the guy says this. He says, man, because I'm really passionate and I'm emoting about the idea that I want to change my life, that I had never been in trouble and I don't want to be in trouble anymore. And he said, man, there's a place called Surrender to Live. And he talked about it so glowingly, like it was the land of milk and honey. Like the cup runneth over with coffee, and you know what I mean? I was like, what is this? And so I get over there, and there was a whole bunch of people that didn't look like me, but what they were talking about, I completely identified with, and I've been there ever since. You know what I mean? And it's changed my life. And we met at Recovery at work, but you've been at Surrender to Live too at a couple times too, right? I think.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what and I want to touch back on something you said, right? Because for me, coming into the rooms, the process of identification for me was foreign, right? Because I didn't use like these people use. I was a little bit different, right? Right. And so people think in order to find recovery, you have to have a needle hanging out of your arm,
exactly,
or you have to use a certain type of drug, right? My sponsor sometimes refers to me as the Mary Poppins of addicts, right? But I belong, right?
Yeah.
So what would you tell that person? They may not like be sticking needles in their arm or doing certain behaviors, but their life is completely in manageability, and their solution is to use over it.
Right. So what I would tell them is this right here is normal people don't ponder if they're addicts or not. Just not something that they do, right? This is a disease of the spirit. And what it does is it's progressive, right? And as you continue to live, you'll start to see the patterns of the disease of addiction rearing up eventually. Our job in Narcotics Anonymous is we fast track that, because if you really think about what Narcotics Anonymous really is, it gives us the education on the disease of addiction, right? Because that's who we're in battle with. We're in battle with a thought process that tells us that, you know what, go ahead and take one more, because that's what's going to fix you. And the idea is it's not the truth. That's not what's gonna fix me. Is spiritual in nature. It's me connecting to the source that I got disconnected from, which is this power that I don't understand. I don't understand this power, right? I don't know exactly what God is and what God isn't, right? I'm not that arrogant to think that I do know, right? I do know that when I connected with that power, it changed my life. That's what I know. And I mean, I give the example of this. If you got $1 million in the bank and you don't have an ATM card, do you really have $1 million? Absolutely no. So in the same way, you can you can have God and say you got God, but if you don't really have access to God, do you really have God in your life? What NA did for me, and I know for a lot of other people, it gave them access to something so valuable, a relationship with the God that could be able to help you change just about anything, right? And if somebody is watching this and they're like, man, the God thing, group of dope fiends, right? Good orderly direction. Whatever you need to be able to realize that, hey, check this out. I just need to connect, because if it worked for you and your life is better, it could work for me. And that's where I'm really at with it. You know what I mean? And I don't think God is that petty to where he's worried about what you call him.
Right.
Just as long as you call on him. Hey, I need help. Can you help me? Those have been my weakest moments, have been my strongest moments, because of me reaching out to a power that can be able to fix any solution if I believe.
Right.
If I believe.
And that's the hardest part for a lot of people, right? Is because we were raised with certain truths, right? Whatever, religious backgrounds or spiritual backgrounds we were raised with, that doesn't really matter when we come into recovery, right? Because we're able to create our own higher power, right? Mm-hmm. And for myself, that was difficult. Like, I mean, for you, what does that look like?
As far as like just the process of coming to believe?
Yeah, because I know a lot of people, especially, that might be one of the biggest things that keeps people out.
Is what, like the whole God piece.
And the misconception through how they were raised and thinking, why even try? I'm already damned.
Right, I'm already done. Yeah, and so the idea is what we do in NA is we give you a new perspective on this power that said would never leave you nor forsake you. Like, this power is like, hey, what they said to you about me, don't always believe that. Like, God is not that petty. That's what we have to understand, right? All these lines that are so defined in society, that's for control. The God that I serve is like, hey man, check this out. What I want you to do is be willing to allow me to use you where you are in this reality to be able to help the next addict. And in turn of helping the next addict, you're actually helping yourself. And that's what this is about. This is about connecting with this power and saying, hey, check this out. Not my will, your will be done, right? And at the end of the day, still being able to say, shit, or, damn, or fuck, or whatever, because this power, right, that a lot of people put in a box, and how dare you put God in a box? How dare you think that God is here to condemn on those terms? Just not, for me, it's just not real, right? I think the biggest grievance against God is not calling on God, right? That's the biggest grievance that I believe God has, right? Because none of us are going to get into heaven on works anyway. Does that make sense?
Makes complete sense.
You're not going to get there by not cussing. You're not going to get there for whatever, how you're going to get there is saying, my God, I realized, man, that I needed you the whole time. I needed you the whole time. That you were on my side. You didn't lie. You said you would never leave me nor forsake me, man. I thought you had left me. And here you are carrying me the whole time. You bringing me to NA. Me washing up. You didn't know. I washed up on the shores of Narcotics Anonymous, right? You guys came, drugged me into the house, and then helped me change my life. That's like amazing, man.
Yeah.
Think about that.
One thing I've been going back and forth on, right? And I appreciate your opinion. So I want to ask you how you feel about this and what you think. And my thought is changing, right? for a long time I was like, must have been born an addict, right? What I'm starting to think now is I had a certain set of traumas that led me to what I was doing, and drugs became the solution to my problem, right? A solution, a way out of feeling or looking at myself. What's your opinion on that? I mean, do you have an opinion on that? I don't even know if there's a right or wrong to that answer.
In regards to what? Say it one more time.
So for a lot of times I thought, I must have been born this way.
Right.
I must have been born this way. Born an addict. For me, it's kind of an easy way out, right? And I'm starting to look at it now as when I was growing up, there was a certain set of traumas that early on I wasn't willing to look at. And that became my answer. Using drugs became the solution, and not my problem, but yet the solution to the problems I wasn't willing to look at.
I don't believe people were born an addict. I don't believe that. I believe that at the end of the day, like you're talking about, it's the trauma or the unaddressed trauma,
right,
that when left in your spirit splinters and festers and gets infected, and what ends up happening as a result of that, we reach out and we're reaching out and we're reaching out, trying to find a way to be able to deal with this pain. And then the first thing that works is weed or alcohol or crystal meth or crack or heroin or whatever, right? But it's only a Band-Aid, right? So I think you're on to something, and that's why I love, as we stay clean, the literature says we come to our own understanding of what this program is for us. Right? We get our own understanding. It shouldn't be indoctrinated into you. Like, there's freedom enough for you to come and understand, like, you know what? This is what I believe, and you're right. And the person that believes that, hey, I believe I was born like this, you're right. Right? Because we're not here to argue on petty terms like that. What is your problem? How can we help? People are dying. That's what we got to focus on.
Right.
We don't care about the theory, right? But I mean, it's nice to do it, the back and forth, whatever. But at the end of the day, the truth of the matter is,
doesn't matter.
No. It doesn't matter where you've been. It's where you're going that counts.
That's right.
Right? Yeah.
And so, going back, like you touched on going into the rooms, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the process of identification, right? And seeing all these different people. So, like, early recovery, I mean, I'm talking about first stepping into the rooms to your first year. Like, what does that look like for you? Like, what is that process like for you?
The first year?
The first year, first day, wherever you want to take it.
So, the first year... we should talk about the first sponsor. So I got my first sponsor, and I relapsed. I came back, and I got my sponsor who changed everything for me, and that was Brian B. Right? Brian B passed away. Right? But what Brian B instilled in me, what I was attracted to, was the fact that he was an addict, but he was living a life that I always wanted to live, and I didn't think that was possible. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I thought that if you're an addict, you'll die with a needle hanging out of your arm, or worse, you'll live a life where you're pushing a buggy, and that's just you. You were washed up. Oh, is that Darrell over there? Oh my God, right? So he showed me a new vision for me through his life, and that changed everything. He got me into the basic text. The basic text got me into contact with what I suffered from, which was the disease of addiction. That's sitting in my thinking. That makes detection, diagnosis, and treatment difficult, right? But inside of understanding that, I was also able to understand what recovery is, which is an active change in my ideas and my attitudes, that I literally would become a different person if I would just stay. And I remember maybe at like 6 or 7 months, being on like the front of Surrender to Live when we were on Lucerne, and I remember like breaking down like with tears, because I was like, man, I've never been able to do anything consistent, man. I never had any like home training. I never was making my bed and keeping my room clean and so like, man, I was like, this isn't for me. And then they reassured me that you could be able to stay clean too. That you could be able to do something different and like take your life all the way to the next level.
So you touched on something and we just went right over it, because I think this is like a pivotal point in a lot of people's story. You talked about coming in, relapsing, and then coming back.
Sure.
What brought you back? Because I think a lot of people say, oh, that's weak to relapse. But I think it's the bravest thing anybody can do is come in, go back out, and then come back.
Right.
Like, what did that process look like for you?
Like I said, I had a couple months, and then what ends up happening is that I didn't understand what it would take to be able to stay clean. I thought that what it took to stay clean was like that it would just take me just not having to do a whole lot. But I realized it took a lot, you know what I mean? And so like it was just one of those things where kind of hold up. I'm getting so okay. Hey, we gotta slide. Hey, so real quick, I can hear you guys, and it's throwing me completely off. Completely off. Yeah, I just like what I can't even put a thought together. So what it took was when I relapsed, I had a couple months. I relapsed on pills, and then I came back. Well, what's going on during the relapse? I thought that maybe I could be like my cousins who like went to church, and like that would be enough for me, right? Like I didn't have to work. Like I could just go to church, and I was doing that, and then I was not hiding, but I felt like I didn't have to be honest about where I was individually. And I was in this big old church and in this sea of people, and I was new and I didn't know how to reach out for help. In NA, we do it different, right? We make sure, hey, how are you doing? How are things going? It didn't work for me, right? And I mean, I go to church now. I love church now, but I realize that I need to have both. If that makes sense. I don't know if that made sense or not, but yeah, you guys can. Yeah.
Well, it's one of those things, right? I go here to save my soul, but I come over here to save my ass, right?
Exactly.
One of those things. And so, like, those early years in recovery, coming to find yourself, moving on to what keeps you there, right? Because I know, you're a successful person. You're one of the most type A people that I've met in recovery. If you want it, you go get it.
I do.
Right? And so now that your life is good, right? What keeps you in the rooms, right?
Right. So like what keeps me in the rooms? Well, what keeps me in the rooms is the fact that recovery must come first. Like I'm still running off the old programming. The old programming that recovery must come first, right? Like as much as I want to say, like I grew up in church, but I connected with God through NA, right? So I'm going to always stay close to the source where I was able to connect with, right? So like some people come in and they're addicts, they're full-blown addicts, and they go to church and they get better, and that's great. For me, I came here and I got better, right? And so let's not discount. Because a lot of people, they come here to NA and they go like, oh, I'm in church now and that's it. And then they can float out. The literature says they can float out of here on a religious zeal, thinking that, oh man, I'm good now, I'm better. No, I'm never cured, bro. The disease I got that's centered in my thinking, it's waiting for me to think that I can go back and just be in that big old church, right? And then be left to my own devices. And then next thing you know, using becomes an option again.
Right.
Right? No, I'm staying right where it worked for me at forever.
And so like one thing that I noticed, right, especially about this area, right, is the love for the newcomer, the compassion.
Sure.
Do you still have that?
Absolutely. I love the newcomer more now than I did when I was coming in. You know what I mean? I love the newcomer because think about it. They're the lifeblood of our organization.
And what does that mean for people that don't even understand?
So it's the newcomers. They're the most important person in our organization. our organization doesn't go like we have a pastor and we look up to that pastor and that pastor is the most important person in the fellow or in that fellowship. No, ours is the newcomer. When the newcomer comes in, that's the person we go get coffee for. That's the person that we go ahead and I would say cater to. Even though we carry the message, we don't carry the addict, but they're the ones. They're the ones that matter the most. And I think they got it right. I think that NA got it right. And I just do, because at the end of the day, as we become, and I think every last one of us in NA who stay clean, we become a leader in our own right. And we have followings in our own right. And people, we have our sphere of influence. And that's just how it goes. And some people may equate that to like, kind of like a pastor if it was in a different organization. And we're like, nah. But kind of a little bit, right? In the sense that we have the experience. And remember, for NA, it is the experience, it's the newcomer. The literature says that that our experience is a gold mine, right? It talks about that the newcomer, we can only keep what we have by giving it away, right? To that newcomer and in other areas. So I mean, those two are pivotal. And also we got to look at the fact of freedom. Why is freedom at the top of our pyramid and not God? Why is that? I'm going to ask you that question, right? Self, society, service, and God all point to freedom.
I'm going to turn it back to you because I love listening to you.
I'm serious. You know, that's what we got to ask. So for me, it's because freedom was so rarely felt. And as we become free to be exactly who we are, we move into this godlike state that people don't want to talk about because they're always so, I need you to stay humble. I want you to stay humble, right? We have to say, staying humble is essential to staying clean as food and water is to staying alive, right? But somewhere in this, you find out who you are, you connect with your power, you connect with your godhood, because at the end of the day, if you ask me, we're made in its image, whatever it is.
Yeah, for me, I keep it a lot more simple. I just say, discipline equals freedom, right? And my sponsor never gives me the answer to questions, right? He lets me work through my own stuff until I can find the freedom of choice, right? Because a lot of times we say first thought wrong. Like, I can never have a right thought. But that's not true. I just have to learn to work through the process to come to the right conclusion for myself. Therefore, I find freedom, right? Freedom in myself, discipline, finding that relationship with the power greater than myself, right? God equals freedom. Right. Discipline equals freedom.
Right.
I'm a simple guy. I like simple terms.
So hey, I try to dumb it down, and this thing right here is off the hook, right?
Yeah.
It's hard. It's definitely hard to do, but yeah, I mean, I like it. And once again, it goes back to, I don't know if there's actually a right or a wrong.
Yeah.
I just think that we all come to our own understanding.
And again, the program, open-mindedness, right?
Willingness, yeah.
And that's why I love your take on things, because I can ask you a simple question, and you don't end up giving me one answer. You'll end up giving me 1, 2, 3 different answers, right? And I could take that and I could digest it and come up with my own conclusion, right?
Sure.
And so going back to you, Darrell, because this thing's about you, right? Yeah. Where is this program taking you? Like, what do you? So we talked about that kid from Kelly Street, right?
Yeah.
And growing up in Stockton.
Yeah.
Scary Stockton.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing with yourself today? Like, what is this? The freedom of this program given to somebody like yourself?
It's given me the ability to go after my greatness. It's given me the ability to go after my greatness. My whole life has changed because of Narcotics Anonymous. And what it did for me, it allowed me to go back to school. It allowed me to go and get a degree. And then as I was going for a master's degree, I realized that at the end of the day, I didn't want it, right? Because it was all about other people's opinion on me and having that degree. And that was another form of these ties to outside approval, because it's not what I really wanted, right? But I understand now that I had to get that to be able to realize that that wasn't necessary. I was always brilliant, always brilliant. What I needed was you guys in NA to believe in me, right? That people that would watch me fail and then get back up and watch me fail and then get back up and then watch me succeed. That's what it was about. It was about me not giving up. It was about me thinking outside the box, not dealing with, because this is what I always say. Why in the hell am I going to beg somebody to sit at their table when I can go build my own? This is America, right? This is America, right? I'm not African American. I'm American. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I believe in this country, and whatever's going on, whatever's happened, I believe in the opportunity that we all got. And I believe at the end of the day, there's people that come over here because it's still the best country on the planet. And it's still the most feared because Russia and all them, they're not tripping off of all those other EU states. They're worried about America. They know that we'll die for freedom. And so that's what this is about, man. It's freedom of choice. The literature talks about we abuse the decision-making process. I'm not trying to do that today. I'm not going to waste my life working for somebody, then dying and being like, dang, Darrell sure worked good. He worked 40 hours, man. He was amazing. I'm not living like that, right? This whole thing is been about realizing I'm not going to be here. I took my head out of the sand and realized one day I won't be here. And my thing is, what am I going to do with the time that I have left? Am I going to squander it? Or am I going to go after everything, right? Am I going to die saying I never drove up from Miami to Philadelphia? No, I'm going to go do it, right? Am I going to die saying, man, I wish I would have started a business? Or am I just going to go do it, right? And so that's what this is about. This is about me saying, hey, I can, and then go do it, right? Setting a goal and killing it, and then go set another goal and killing it. That's what this is about. That's what I'm addicted to. That's where my addiction is, right? I'm the type of person, if they're like, hey, we got to take the hill, I'm like, who else is coming with me? Because I'm going to go take that fucking hill, right? And if nobody else wants to go, give me the pistol, give me the AR, I'm going to go myself. I am actually going to take that hill, and you're going to be like, oh my God, this dude took that hill. How did he do it? Like, that's who I am. And it shows up in every area of my life, right? I'll do it by myself. I don't want to, right? I'm learning how to be able to say, hey, check this out. Here goes an AR for you. Here goes an AR for you. Let's go take it, right? Strategically.
Got it.
Right? So that's just who I am, man.
So I'm assuming, and I'm assuming here.
Go ahead.
But I know a lot of people are in this position, especially early on, or maybe people that are out there where you feel like you're meant for more, right? Like you have that feeling, but you don't know how to tap into it yet, right? All you need is that little push, right? And I'm guessing at some point in your life, you were that person where you're sitting in this situation, whether it be when you were in that jail cell or when you're walking in and you think, I'm better than this.
Yeah. You want me to tell you about that?
Where was the push?
The push happened. I was in an apartment a little bit bigger than this room. Just add a bathroom, right? I'm working for the county. I'm putting $5 on pump 4 in my car, right? And I know that I have what it takes. For everybody that I'm working with, all them bosses that are treating me like shit, I know I have what it takes, right? In truth, I know I'm better than them. And that's important, right? And I didn't want to lay down, man. And so what ends up happening, I remember writing this curriculum called, what was the name of the curriculum? Beyond Ordinary. I wrote the curriculum, right? And it was about how to align your everyday 24 Because the billionaire and the beggar both have one thing in common. They both have 24 hours in a day. It's only what the beggar is doing with his 24 and what the billionaire is doing with his 24. So I knew I had to shift my 24 hours. So what ends up happening, I started writing out goals. I want to make $20,000 a month. And by the way, we blew that. We blew that out of the water. You know what I'm saying? And so the idea, I wanted to make $20,000 a month. I wanted to go kayak, and I remember getting a vision board, and I was like, I want to go ahead, and I wanted a team, and I wanted us all to go kayak, and we just did that. That was on my vision board years ago. I aligned my 24 hours with what I wanted. You can't work at Taco Bell and say say you want a BMW i8. I stopped living in fantasy, and I started doing something realistically about my hours and my minutes and my seconds. And I had discipline, commitment, follow through, focus, right? And that's the thing about me. I'm ready to die for the shit that I want. They're not, and that's why I love real MMA fighters and real boxers, right? Because the real ones say, man, you got to fucking put me to sleep to kill me. You got to kill me in here. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And everybody's not willing to die for what they want. And that's the difference between me and everybody that I come in contact with. And like, Darrell, it's not that big of a deal. I'm like, fuck you. It is that big of a deal. It's the same thing with my clean day. Fuck you, I'll die for this. That's the difference. That's why I'm here 13 years later. And all the people that thought they were going to be here, because Darrell's unorganized, Darrell's sloppy, Darrell's messy, Darrell's all this shit, but Darrell got work ethic, right? Darrell died in the cage for his shit. That's the difference. That type of determination and will always beat out an average motherfucker. Every day. I beat average motherfuckers out every day. And the best thing about me is I'm a creative. I don't copy. I got people around me. Oh, Darrell's starting up a sober living. Darrell, can you help me start a sober living? Motherfuckers are copying. That's the difference. And it's okay, right? But at some point, you got to become your own creative, because that's the closest you're going to get to God. You understand what I'm saying? Because at the end of the day, look at it. We're all byproducts of something creating. We're byproduct of something creating. So the idea is, while everybody is copying, you can never be better than the creator, because you can only copycat. That's all you can do. That's not how I live, man. And you're seeing it in people on my Facebook. And if you don't know who I am, my name is Darrell McCullough, and you can follow me at Darrell McCullough, McCollough, right? I'm the guy you need to follow. Period, point blank. I'm the guy you need to follow, and you need to follow me because we want to be inspired, right? We want to find that person that's willing to die for this shit. That's the difference. Who stand on virtues that matter and say, man, check this out. This dude is raw, man. Hey, you got to come check this guy out. He's tripping on saying clean. Like, this dude is like, he's talking about he'd rather die. Like, and so, but that's what it's about. These wishy-washy, copycat imitators, right? What's going on is they don't understand the idea that if you would just tap into your godhood and learn how to create, you can be able to go way further, man. Does that make sense?
I love it.
Right?
And that's like where we hang out, right? Like, a lot of people hang around, they drink the coffee, they joke around. And that was one of the things that always drew me to you and it helped me stay clean, is the fact that a lot of people, they want to not talk about the reality of our disease, right? They say jails, institutions, and death. Mm-hmm. But you don't have to make the first two stops, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. And I just think that's lost. And I love the way you talk about it, because you emphasize that, right? Like, that's what people got to realize, is that what you're doing right now, this disease is progressive and it's lethal, and you're going to die from your choices, right? If this is the path you continue to go down. So what would you tell that person that may be hearing this, right, and they hear something resonating with them, and they think they may need to make a change, but they're not sure on how to get clean, stay clean, where to go, right? Like, what would you tell that person right now? They don't know nothing. They don't know about recovery, about the options out there. Like, What would you tell that person?
So this is what I would tell them, right? If you want to stay clean, if you want to beat your enemy, you got to know your enemy. That's what everybody that sponsored me, they've always told me, hey, know your fucking enemy. Know him. Know what he does. Know how think about the United States. They spend billions of dollars knowing about North Korea and where China's artillery is and what Russia is doing and what's going on in India or wherever, because they're doing the recon on their enemy. People relapse because they don't do the recon on the disease of addiction, and it fucks them every time. Understand your enemy. Because if you understand how your enemy, and we can go because you do the boxing and the MMA, if you understand your enemy, remember, they're going to set traps, right? They're going to go to the body. They're going to go to the body. They're going to go to the body because they want that right hand to the head to knock you out. Understand how your disease fades, right? You got to understand that. You got to understand that the disease is centered in your thinking, makes detection, diagnosis, and treatment difficult, and what that means. Right? You got to understand that the disease is going to always check in to see if you're ready to check out. You ready to check out? You sure, Darrell? Nah, man, I want to check out. All right. I'll call you back. That's what I would tell anybody. Know your enemy. And there's a lot of people like, man, I'm not worried about the disease. I'd be like, man, fuck you. Know your enemy. Understand, because if you don't do the preparation, right, to know your enemy, when you think your enemy going to come with the 1-2 and it come with an overhand right, your ass is going to sleep. You're going to sleep. Know that your enemy can use a whole bunch of tricks. And the best thing it uses is distortion and fear and distorting fear, right? That false evidence appearing real. And distorting that shit and then paralyzing you like you got hit one of them freaking blow darts, and now you're just like, I'm paralyzed in fear. And then the only way out of that fear, the disease will check in and say, hey man, the only way out of this fear is to go use something. You're like, yeah, you're right. Here, boom, you're high again. That's what this is about. That's about knowing, and that if you can understand what you suffer from, then you can understand how to fight.
Right. And like that was huge for me, right? Learning that my story is in a certain book, right? And that first 24 pages read over and over again can unlock so many keys for me. But today my disease attacks me in different ways, right? It attacks me. It wants me to step out and do different things. It wants me to act out of character. Like, so for somebody like that may be listening to this, that is clean, right? That's been there. They've done these things. What would you tell them if they're getting lost, if they may be in the middle of some sort of spiritual, emotional relapse? Like, how do you pick up on that? Is that why you're still checking in? Is that what the process looks like today for you?
So for me, I done been through it all. Like, here's the thing. I hate these people in NA that says, hey, you're never going to have any problems, bro. You're never going to be in the barrel, bro. You're good, man. That's the lie. The truth is, it talks about in our literature that this program, the steps, help ease the pain of living. It doesn't alleviate the pain of living, right? So part of this thing is realizing that I'm gonna get my turn in the barrel. And how I navigate that matters, because it's easy when it's easy. When I'm talking all this good shit right now, it's when I'm in the barrel that it really matters. Don't talk to me about war if you ain't on the front line battlefield, because that's two different scenarios. And what you do not in war and in war is different, and there's two different yous. It's different when you're a commentator than when you actually when you're actually in the cage, right?
Yeah.
So the idea is, that's what you got to understand, is that this disease and how you fight this disease, depending on where you are in your life, man. Eventually, we're gonna get sick and die. That's it. That's the truth. I don't hide from that. Like these other weirdos that hide from that shit. Oh no, man, I'm gonna live forever, brother. Shut up. Tell the truth, man. Accept that truth about you, right? And stop living so scared. Stop worrying so much about if I fail, because eventually you're going to be in a pine box and you can't move. So why not go after everything? Why not say fuck it? I'm serious.
No, it's beautiful.
Why
I
not
love it.
say fuck it, man? That's how I live, man. People don't understand. People are like, oh, I remember my mom saying, Darrell, why are you leaving that county job? And come on, and it's a good job, and you can just go after that master's, and you can be able to make $68,000 a year. Man, we're making $68,000 a fucking month. Fuck that old way of thinking. I don't give. Hey, I'm telling you the truth, man. My thing is this right here. Why play? Why play with life, man? I'm gonna fucking die anyway, and you want me to be safe? To an extent. A little bit so I can maybe go ahead. But no, bro, I'm going in, bro. I'm going all the way in. I'm going all the way in. Because why not? What do we got to lose?
Yeah.
What do we got to lose? Think about it.
Not too much.
What are we going to lose? You think you're going to get out of this thing called life alive? Come on, bro. Come on. Knock it off. Knock it off. Accept that truth about you that one day they'll be viewing you. When I did that, when I realized that when I came close to death, it was the most freeing I ever got, right? I almost died or felt in my mind that I was getting ready to die. And what ends up happening, somewhere in that, it freed me. To say, I don't give a fuck, right? That manifested in the right area, because I used to be like, man, I don't give a fuck, and then I would hit drugs or whatever, smoke drugs or whatever. Now I'm like, I don't give a fuck. I'm going to go out and I'm going to live my life, right? And I don't care what you think about me. All I care about is that I did it exactly what I wanted to do, but I made sure I checked in with my higher power. I always do that. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so that's what this is about, man. I don't care, man. I'm going to go ahead and take that risk. I'm going to throw them dice, man, because you ain't going to get out of here alive anyway. Everybody, oh, man, it's so calculated. I got to be careful, man. My 401k, man, I want to make sure that I'm okay. Man, knock it off. Everybody rots. What are you going to do now? What are you going to do now?
That's beautiful. And that's the question, right? Like, what? So for people listening to this, right, they still probably going to have a hard time.
They're like, what is going on?
Yeah.
This guy is crazy.
Yeah, and I've known you now for 6.5 years, right? And I sit in front of you, and sometimes I'm still at disbelief, right? Like, you're talking to me, and I'm having a hard time coming up with a question for you, right?
Yeah, man. I don't know, man. That's the difference. And here's that internally is going on, and it's playing out in my reality.
Right.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You can tell what's going on internally by what's playing out in their reality.
Yes.
I'm no longer bound. And that's what people don't realize. They don't understand, oh man, Darrell's doing this, what you're really seeing is a free man walking. You don't understand it, and we don't even see free people anymore. They're so bound up by their employer, by PG&E, water, trash. I gotta pay the. I gotta take out the trash. I gotta pay the trash. Right. I got gas prices. I'm a Democrat. I'm a Republican. I'm not none of that. I'm free. I'm not subscribing to what you want. I built my own table. I'm my own man. Right. And that means something because it frees some people and the other people, and it draws attack. Because these simple Simon motherfuckers never understand when people are free, they don't understand it, and what they do is they try to kill it off, right? And you see that throughout history, people that become free, and then next thing you know, the best thing they can come up with is like, man, we got to kill this dude. Why? Because, bro, he's not thinking like us, bro. He's tripping. Like, come on, man.
So like that little kid from the block.
Yeah, you want to talk about that little kid now?
To here.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Is this all because of recovery?
No.
So this was you without the tools before, right? So what I'm saying is, would you have taken away those negative experiences knowing where you're at now? Or all that had to lead up to this, right? I mean,
no, you don't ever. Every iota of what happened in my life led me to the power that I have, right? Hey, we talk about the powerlessness, but there's a power associated with staying clean, right?
Yeah.
There's a power with knowing that, hey, you can't eat of that tree, but everything else is yours, and you obey that and say, cool, I don't want that. I'll go get everything else over here, and then you kill it. That's what I realized. I realized what I can't do, and in turn, I realized what I can do and what that would in turn make me and who I would become because I ate of this tree and not that one. It's a game changer, man. It's a game changer.
So like with your perspective and the way you live, like when you're around people, you know, because I know you don't just travel in recovery circles now with business and everything else, right? And you're around a certain circle of people and they're like, man, this was a long day. I gotta go knock a few back, right? Like, what does that make you think at this point?
I don't hang around with a lot of people like that.
Right.
So my thing is my circle is small. I'll do business with them, but they're business associates.
Exactly.
But that's it. I don't get close to people outside the program.
Gotcha. So, but what does your mind tell you when you're around people like that? Does that make you feel like that's a certain set of weakness, or is there ever a moment where that sounds appealing to you at this point in your life? Like, do you ever hear that, you know?
Heck yeah. What do you mean?
Yeah, exactly. Thank you.
Come on, man. I'm being
Thank
real.
you.
So what was going on is the other day, man, I went and I got some food and I went to the park and I'm eating the food. I hear this girl coughing and she's coughing because she's smoking weed.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, what the heck? You know what I mean? And so I had to literally roll up my window, right? And then eventually roll off because I know where I can and where I can't go. I don't think that I'm strong enough to go in those areas that you guys told me I couldn't go by myself. I still subscribe to if you don't put the dope in your hand, you don't get high.
Right.
Right? That's what I still subscribe to that. I don't put dope in my hand, whether that's alcohol or whatever type of dope. It don't matter.
So 13 years later, with all this armor, all this success, you're still living by the basics.
I'm still living by the basics.
And so that's the skeleton structure that enables you to live this life of freedom.
Period, point blank. If I don't got that, it's a wrap. Recovery is the act of changing our ideas and our attitudes. Like we literally become different people. We literally become the people that I dreamed about as a little boy, right? That I can finally look somebody else in the eye and be grateful for who I am, right? I built a life that isn't predicated on anybody else. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like people come to me and say, hey, Darrell, I need help, right? And I, in turn, could be able to go to other people and say, hey, I need help. But that's building something. And I always said this. I was not coming in recovery to just build a foundation for a house. I came in recovery. I dug deep because I wanted to build a skyscraper of a life. You know, so if you dig deep down, you got to go, you can build high. But if you just get a little, you just grade it a little bit and you go ahead and you pour, you can build a house. I wanted something different, man. I didn't come in recovery just for basic stuff. I wanted it all. I knew I could be able to get it. You know what I mean? And I made sacrifices. It was hard, man. Because recovery is not about what you do. A lot of the time it's about what you have to let go. The mentality, the people, the places, the things, right? The thought patterns, the thought process. It was hard.
And I think that's a beautiful place to leave it right there. I could listen to this all day. I could talk to you all day.
Yeah.
So in closing, is there anything, because I know you run recovery homes in Stockton.
Sure.
Is there anything, like somebody may pick this up in Stockton, they may need some help. Where can they find that info? Is it on your Instagram that you plugged before?
So they can go to Change Point. So we have 3 homes in the Stockton area. It's called Change Point, where we help men who are looking to come in. We got people that maybe are suffering from mental illness. We got people who are just coming out of prison. We got homes where they're more luxury for people who are like, you know what? I need to get something that's a little bit more my speed. And I don't want to leave out the people at the top or the people at the bottom. The people at the top are dying faster almost than the people at the bottom. People may not believe me on this, but it's the truth because they are left with untreated addiction. They're the ones that are like, man, you know what? I came from privilege. I came from money. I don't even deserve to be able to get, I should be able to handle this. Yeah, right. You're an addict. It's okay. You know, you can be able to call and get the help that you need because you deserve to live just like somebody else that may come from humble beginnings. You guys both deserve to live. So that's my belief. I don't know.
Yeah. And so changepoint.com.
Changepointhomes.org. And if you're somebody who are looking maybe to start up a sober living, it's a win-win, not only for you, but for your community. It's startasoberliving.com. And I want to thank you, man, so much, man, for this.
No, we end with a hug. We don't do the handshake.
Okay,
we do the hug.
I love you, man.
Yeah, I love you too, man.
I appreciate you, man.
Thank you for sitting down with us.
Yeah.